Hey, you're back. Welcome to Season 2 of The People We Meet. My name is Ty Bruner, and I'll be your host. This is a show about ordinary people that have done extraordinary things. I'm glad you're here, and let's get on with it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The People We Meet. Today, I am at the No Lie Brewhouse in Spokane, Washington, and the brewhouse on its own is interesting to me because brew is a the brewhouse and beer that's brewed there is a staple of our community. And under the leadership of the owner, John Bryant, it is now heavily invested in the community, and it has a really interesting story. And John also has a very interesting story. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's good to have you. John, where were you born?
Shelton, Washington, in the old hospital.
In the old hospital?
In the old hospital, yeah.
Is there a new hospital?
Well, it's newer than in the 60s, yeah.
And what does your family look like? You brothers and sisters?
5 of us. Originally during the Dust Bowl, my grandma and grandfather were like 17 and 20. And they hitched a ride to get out of South Dakota because there's nothing going on. They couldn't work, couldn't eat. It was Dust Bowl. It was pretty tough times.
Yeah.
And they ended up in a place called Vader, which is kind of by a little bit, let's call it Chehalis, Centralia, Mossy Rock, Longview in that area. And they lived on a football field in a tent for a year. And I just remember the stories from my grandmother, who I was close to. My grandfather they were super excited because you could literally have subsistence living. So they planted a garden, they fished or poached or whatever, and they lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my father got, fortunately, a football scholarship to Eastern College in the early 50s. He's 89, still kicking. And that changed the trajectory of our entire family.
Yeah, I imagine
and
so.
So born in Shelton, there's 5 of us kids. Dad was a teacher, Skokomish area by Hood Canal, which was part indigenous or Native American school because it was right on the reservation area. And he taught, and Hood Canal is a tiny place. And my younger formative years, I was there, and then we moved in closer to Olympia, just by Shelton. Yeah.
So, and where were you in the birth order?
I'm the middle kid.
You're the middle kid.
Yeah. There's I have an older brother, older sister, 2 younger sisters. So at some time in the birth order, you could say I was the youngest of the baby, and then I was the middle, and then I was the oldest, because there's a 14 or 15 year span between the 2. So I got to play all roles.
Tight-knit family?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of born out of a Grange Hall, small community. My grandmother made sure that happened. And I think, the wrong term is cross to bear, because I don't want to say that lightly, but there's a lot of pressure or obligation to take the opportunities that we were given that a lot of people don't get out of that place and then do good with it.
Now, you mentioned the Grange Hall.
Yeah.
What to those that may not know, what is the Grange Hall, and what's its significance to the community?
Yeah. So the tiny town of Mossy Rock, my grandfather was basically a lumberjack, built roads. He helped, a lot of people through around Mount Rainier, around St. Helens, and it was the mountains and definitely Mount Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And they had little shanty towns as they would go. So it was rough. My grandfather probably drank too much, fought too much, and worked too much. That was this is in the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
The economy got going after World War II, and that's what was available for an uneducated. They both had 6th grade education, 8th grade education. So you worked hard. And when the opportunity came, it came. But when the community came together, it was a Grange Hall. So when they finally settled down this little town called Mossy Rock, the Grange Hall was the center of where everybody went. So that was weddings, graduations, funerals, dance night. That's just where it came together, and that's where everybody came together.
So venue, community hub.
Yeah. If you needed help, that's where you went. If you wanted to give help, that's where you went. If you wanted to celebrate or mourn, it's where you went.
So just while we were talking, you sort of compared No Lie Brewhouse to the Grange Hall.
Yes.
So that gives me a little bit more insight as to what that means. Did you play sports in high school?
I did.
What'd you play?
Football, undersized outside linebacker, and played baseball, a younger kid, and then threw the discus and track. My passion was football, and because my dad was a football player. So in college, I always thought I could get there, but just didn't quite have the speed. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, so
So, and what crowd did you run with? Did you run? You played on the teams. Did you run with who was your crowd? Who'd you hang out with?
Man, I still have some really good buddies. There's probably an extended group, 10 or 11, and a tighter of 5 and I still stay in close contact. They're still dear friends, and all were probably better athletes than me, but just dear friends. We were through thick and thin. We partied, we worked, we had jobs while we played sports to the best of our ability. I was a dishwasher, I'd get home at 11:30, midnight, whatever school was, right? Get back up, you gotta, but it was really I was really fortunate to have grown up in the country, rural, where you can make good friends because you rely on each other. And then bust into a bigger high school on the west side of Olympia where I made more good friends. And it was just a tight-knit group. We did a lot. We were active.
And those are friendships that you maintain still.
Oh, yeah. They're grounding.
So backing up just a little bit, you mentioned your grandparents. They came west during the Dust Bowl. And where did they come from?
Miller, St. Lawrence, South Dakota. It's so small, they took 2 little townships and made it one city. It's got 2 bars, a little grocery store, and a Dairy Queen, and a blinking yellow light today, and a big church. And so during, the stories my grandma would tell me during the Dust Bowl, which was obviously the Deep Depression. Yeah. Grandpa was part of the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, and they would pay 2 guys, split the salary or the dollar hourly wage. One guy dig a hole, the other guy bury it, or they'd plant trees or whatever, right? And there was just no money, and there was no future. And so they got married young and had my dad. And at 1 year old, I think they're like 17, 18, and Grandpa was a few years older, 20. They just hitched a ride on some old truck with a 1-year-old because they'd heard there was subsistence living in the Northwest. Like you could grow stuff and hunt stuff and eat. I mean, that's how basic they were looking for. And the DNA's always been in me, like survival. Like in high school, I did search and rescue, and we went in and brought people out that were lost or not living.
How, through what agency or?
16, 17. And I always remember a big thing is we were on the side of one of the final tests to get certified was the
And who was it through?
It's called Explore Search and Rescue. It was in Olympia. Yeah. And they came in, got high school kids, and then they trained you up for months with, the compass, overnight, just extreme survival skills, right? You'd have your backpack, maybe a sleeping bag and a little bit of food, and here's the compass. And one of the final tests was, here's your coordinates, and you got to get out in 2 days. Okay. And if you're off just a little bit over 2 days, you don't pass. So a lot of people didn't pass. We were lucky we did. We actually got damn close. And I always remember you get to the end and you're supposed to hit your stake after 2 days. And the stakes are there's multiple stakes, right? And you got to hit the right one. So I, learned to use a compass pretty well, learned how to fall into a creek or wherever and get dry. But I remember one of the cool tests we had was on Mazama Ridge, I believe is on Mount Rainier. And we had to build snow caves and stay up there for 2 nights.
And this was through the Boy Scouts.
No. This is called Explore Search and Rescue of Olympia. And I remember we had to build a snow cave, a dome. This is the way you build it. You go down, up, and in, and dome it so the water, when it, goes down the side. We lived in it for 2 days. And actually, it was kind of a blast. But what all that taught me was, you can do a lot with a little. And it made me, maybe I did, because it made me feel like more like my grandparents, that they had to scrape and really use their minds without an education.
Yeah.
Grit and just endurance. And sometimes I find that me is too strong of survival. And not a lot of people are programmed that way.
Right.
And I knew No Lie would get here. I didn't know what it'd take, punching through gravity with a small business takes a toll, not just on you, but everybody around you.
Absolutely. Well, your grandparents apparently have been very influential on your journey. How has their work ethic shaped who you are today, both as a person and as a business leader?
It's interesting. When I was a young kid, I've always been kind of a morning guy by DNA. And I remember getting up and Grandma smoked the red pack Pall Malls, the hardcore, and drank the little untaps, the little shorty tabs. And I would get up early and she'd just tell me, she kind of entrusted me with the family and what it took to get here. And I think of the 5 of my brothers and sisters, I learned the most those early mornings, just absorbing, because Grandpa started the chainsaw as soon as the sun cracked. He was out cutting, firewood.
So you watched that.
And then I participated in it as I got a little bit older.
Yeah.
But as a youngest kid, the chainsaw started because Grandpa was up. Fire was like, I just picture a really fall morning or winter. If I was staying with them or he came at our house in the country, you knew he was up and moving 30 minutes before light. That's given. Fire's built and going. And he's outside prepping the chainsaw and getting all the shit together and getting ready to go. Meanwhile, I'm inside, talking to Grandma until I was old enough to go out with him and split countless cords of wood. And heard the stories. And the one that really has always stuck with me was once they made it to Mossy Rock, they'd sent my dad to a boarding school because the towns they lived in were just too tough. They just too tough. They're shanty towns, right? No place for young kids. So they send me to this not great boarding school it's basically located by Mary's Corners between Interstate 5 and Mossy Rock. There was an old boarding school out there during the Depression in the 40s and 40s.
Rough time for him?
Yeah. And made it pretty tough, yeah. He don't like to talk about it a lot, but I just remember the Grange Hall thing really permeates. It's what No Lie can do powerfully with a community. He takes other people. She remembers telling me the story of the town was just starving. Like there's just no food. There's no work. There's nothing to do. You could hunt, you poached, you fished, you did whatever. But everybody had given everything they had and everybody was sharing at the Grange Hall, but there wasn't much left, know? And she wrote a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt. My grandma had like a 7th grade education. And the big story was how they had to get the money together, put a damn stamp on this thing. She wrote a letter and she told me, I just kind of pleaded for help that we're good people, we're working hard, we believe in President, big FDR fan, New Deal, CCC obviously, big effect, which always permeated my brain. The government has helped me. And I'm always very aware of helping other people because we wouldn't have got here. My dad wouldn't have got a scholarship and a lot of things. But she wrote a letter to Eleanor Roosevelt. Just go, I need some help in Mossy Rock. And as the story goes, it's like 6 weeks later, 2 trucks rolled into town with produce from Florida.
No kidding.
And food and everything. And I was like, I have a 6th or 7th grade education woman with her son out at a boarding school and her husband trying to work in shanty towns and cut trees and just, drank too hard and fought too much. And it was a different time. Could get the president's wife of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, to recognize this little bodunk nothing town. I'm like, then anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything.
Do you know if the first lady wrote back?
I don't know that part of it. And I wish I had the letter.
Yeah.
But it's the lore in the town. These trucks rolled in and Grandma's like, I sent that note, Yeah. And I'm like,
well, it must have made an impression.
Yeah. And I know, so we've always been Eleanor Roosevelt fans because just that story, it gives me goosebumps when I tell it today. And I tell my kids that. I'm like, you can think this is all BS or whatever. This is real shit. Like, this is how the world moves. You have to help the universe move sometimes.
Yeah.
And that takes energy, engagement, risk, failure. You have to be ready to be ridiculed. You have to be ready for all those pains and things when, there's a lot of ridicule that came with No Lie. And, so anyway, all those things fortify a soul and what the brand means.
So I'm starting to see kind of how the seeds were sown. The importance of the community.
Yeah.
The struggle to survive.
Yeah.
The necessity to, basically step up and do something.
Yeah.
So moving on a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously very strong foundation, starting with your grandparents, leading by example, and the lesson. Yeah. Very interesting. You said that your love for beer started at a family picnic at Olympia Brewing.
Yeah.
What did that moment awaken in you, and how did it carry you through your career?
It's pretty amazing. This little school I went to, I had like the same 28 to 40 kids after we moved in from Hoodsport to a rural place about 10 miles outside of Olympia. Basically call it 2nd through 8th grade. The same, we're like a small family. It was a small school, right? But I didn't realize at the time, all the kids primarily were very blue collar like we were, but their parents worked at Satsup's nuclear power plant that never got off the ground in Elma. They built these 2 big towers that are still there, and they got mothballed. And then the Olympia Brewing Company, which is in town from us. And one summer, and all the young kids I hung out with in this little neighborhood area, their parents worked at Ole, and they were in packaging, they were in kegging, they were in forklift, marketing. Excuse me. But one summer, the guy goes, "Hey, there's a family picnic," and his dad worked at Ole. "Hey, we don't want to go?" And I'm thinking, it's at Black Lake. It's July. Hell yeah, let's do this, right? So we jump in the back of the pickup. Back in the day, you can just jump in the back of the pickup, right? And we all jump in the back of the pickup. We're driving, And I get there, and it's Black Lake, which back when I was younger, just beautiful. And it was a big Miller-Sylvania State Park. I think I got the park name right. And I just remember a big grassy field that goes sloping down to the lake. It's July in Ole, so it's probably 85 degrees-ish. And I remember the big horse trough full of ice and Shasta Cola cans for the kids, root beer, grape soda, those flavors they had. And then there was this big old school, like National Park picnic table, those ones that are like 5 inches thick. Those things are just girthy.
Yeah.
And they have 2 kegs sitting on the end of the table, the old gravity tap. So you tap the top, and then you have the spigot on the bottom, and just beers are just flowing. I mean, Olympia beer just flowing. And I remember, then I look out, and there, back in the day, you'd swim, let's call it 30 yards offshore, 40 maybe. There was a little wood tower built where you could climb up the top and dive off. Stuff they wouldn't let you do today. So you got kids playing out there. There's horseshoes going. There's a steel trough full of Shasta Cola for the kids. There's the 2 kegs hanging off this thing. Parents are laughing. Then they got the big cutout half barrel, that's the barbecue with the big grate on it, and big briquettes, and smoke's going up, burgers, hot dogs. The smells are one, the visual of that summer day on that park, but what it resonated and it burned into my head was everybody was happy and smiling, and people got along, and they came together this day. And these are pretty blue collar folks, right? And kids, but what I know, everybody was having fun. I'm like, I want a piece of this. Yeah. I don't know what this is, but I know it's beer, and I know it means community, and I know it means smiles. And from that day, I knew what I was going to do. And I've worked in bars and pubs all the way through high school and college. I worked at the Coug in Pullman. I lived upstairs. It's just in my blood.
Well, it seems like, and that's very vivid imagery of that day. Clearly made an impression.
Yeah.
Before No Lie, you worked at iconic breweries like Rainier and Deschutes and was it Oscar Blues?
Oscar Blues, Odell Brewing. Yeah.
What did you learn in those years that helped shape your leadership philosophy?
I tell you, the greatest learning I had, I was so fortunate when I got a break into the Rainier Brewery in the 80s when they made beer in Seattle. The company also owned the Blitz Weinhardt Brewery, which was Henry Weinhardt's in Portland on Burnside. It doesn't exist anymore. Was those companies, as I got there, went into receivership. It's a long story, but form of bankruptcy. And the NBA started peeling out. A lot of the talent started going to Anheuser-Busch, to Miller Brewing Company, and Coors Brewing Company. And they're like, "Hey, kid, if you'll stick around, you'll work literally 80 to 100 and some hours a week, literally 7 days a week. You're going to be doing everything.
What year
we need help."
Dude?
88, 89,
Oh, okay.
90, 91, 92, right in there.
Gotcha.
And so I got this incredible timing. But what I got to learn by being out on the forklift and loading kegs on a truck, and then we also went through a strike, so they threw me out there, which is not pretty when you have to cross the picket line. I wasn't crossing it. I was, I'm just like I'm working there and they're like throwing me over. I was already an employee of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a lot of the guys. That's a whole nother story. But from loading kegs and cases and picking to picking up cigarettes in the parking lot to giving a tour of the brewery to doing my first brew in 1989 with the brewer there to learning some of the finance exposure, the sales and the marketing, what I quickly learned on this company was it had been bought and sold so many times since it was formed. So the culture got lost. Mm-hmm. And then there were silos everywhere. So finance was against marketing. Marketing was against finance. Sales didn't like marketing. Production, the brew house, they couldn't get together. And so you just had a breakdown. And so it taught me right away, just like the Grange Hall, you have to have common purpose. You have to have common mission. And everybody's, at least the majority, have to be in agreement or at least bought in enough to have something that compass goes towards. And at that company, the compass was everywhere. And so that also brings a degree of intensity because you're looking for people who are willing to be somewhat selfless for the greater goal while still mending to their careers, their families, their financial needs. And so I've always thought of No Lie in that way. There's a lot of responsibilities that are hard to explain and it would take for hours to try to every person give you all the little pieces of it. But I got to be selfish for you, but I got to be selfish for the company. And then somehow that all has to go together. And so you do look for somewhat selfless people. Mm-hmm. People have the ability to bend just slightly. But the greatest learning I had was that time at Rainier and Henry Weinhardt's when I got to go down to Portland and be in that brewery and hang out with the brewmaster and hang out with the production lead and you know, how these people tick, like what makes them go.
Yeah.
And so I've always had a deep passion for the actual art of making beer and who it attracts and what they're into, because they're artists to some degree. I mean, you have line brewers, you have line people on can lines, and then you have people that really bleed it. But they also have a maturity to understand that it's just beer. I mean, it's just beer, right? So we have the gift of having the ability to do it. Now, what do you do with that? We have way enough beer in America. There's so many breweries. There's a certain threshold of quality you get to. Okay, and then it's really incremental, small pieces. And then beer's hugely emotional. It's a badge, which goes back to that employee party I went to at Ole.
Yeah.
I recognize the emotional component of it. You have to have great beer and great emotion and then do something with it. Selfless, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem with being selfless or so driven is not everybody is. And it can be offensive. Mm-hmm. But I can't apologize for that because I'll never apologize to my grandma for instilling that.
Right.
Because if she wouldn't have the same drive, you know, my dad, who's, you know, kicking and screaming on a train, I think from Centralia they took him to, or Morton, for a tryout at Washington State College and Eastern College, didn't want to go, leave the woods. I'd still be, where would I be, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with being in the woods, by the way. It's a lot of family, you know, does that. But they had an opportunity and they took it. And so when my dad went to Eastern, he had no fallback. You succeed or you die. That's kind of sometimes that's a little extreme, but you succeed or you fail. And what does success look like? He blew out his knee his sophomore year, blew out both knees. Mm-hmm. So he didn't finish football. But then he had a working scholarship, so he got to stay. And he tells me the story of being on a little stool because both his knees were jacked up bad. And he would slide around in the bathrooms because he was the janitor. And he would slide in, sit down, he'd clean the toilets, you know, because he wouldn't stay in school.
God, that's tough.
Right?
That's going to be, I mean, to go from, you know, you're there on a football scholarship, you're a BMOC, and now you're cleaning the shitter.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That's humbling, right? So you have to know overarching drive of why were you there and what was this vehicle meant to get you to? Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, it wasn't real. I mean, it was about football. That was the access point to have the opportunity, but it was get through that school. And he got a teaching certificate. And then you had a cool coaching career, coach football and track. That was probably why I did those two sports. And he influenced a lot of people. And my mom was a waitress with 5 kids. So, you know, in the days, dad taught and then coach, which takes a lot of time. And then he worked at the correctional facility in Shelton, and they would put him in closed doors and give mental evaluations to some of the most hardened people. Mm-hmm. And he would give me a little bit of insight, but serial killers, I mean, he was behind in a room alone with them, right? And that was his third job. And mom worked at Alderbrook and was a waitress at night. So we were just around. Like, I just didn't know any different.
So you paint a pretty clear picture of what it takes to inspire and bring an organization together.
Yeah.
But it takes a certain person with a certain skill set and personal ingredients to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What is your personal leadership philosophy, and how do you instill that motivation and get people to flex, like you said, and be a little bit selfless? What part of John Bryant does that?
I think there's a lot of things, and who really knows, but I think what I'd fall back on immediately is that Grange Hall part of, how my grandmother survived and how it kind of formidable, Eleanor Roosevelt and that truck coming to town with food, and she did that, and, pushing my father to make him go for a tryout to just, because she knew she had to get him out of there, and they had no money. The only way he was going to school was on sports.
Yeah.
That was it.
Tell you what, I'm going to I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go for it.
I'm going to rephrase the question. Because I know the examples that were set for you.
Yeah.
And they were very strong, excellent examples.
Yeah.
But you can be surrounded by good examples all day long and not embody them and not perpetuate them.
Sure.
How do you lead people? How do you talk to people? How do you inspire them?
My father always made us set goals. Always. They were on my wall growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And they were ridiculously crazy sometimes of what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
There was really no exception in my family. It was an obligation, a privilege, and a responsibility to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And then to use that as influence for good. That just wasn't negotiable. So my brain never went anywhere else. So leadership style would be sharing, generosity. And as I've learned over time, there has to be accountability with that. You can't give away the farm, so to speak, and have no accountability because people won't appreciate it or they don't understand what it took to get it to them.
Yeah, they have to have some skin in the game.
You got to have skin in the game, which was hard for me really to accept. Because if you're programmed differently, you just naturally assume you have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to teach their skin in the game. So I would see it, no lie, and this is without arrogance, it's really the deal of humility is whatever best is, right? I want us to be the best brewery in America and highly competitive internationally from Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a lot of great beers in Spokane, a lot. And there's some of my friends and I'm taking a couple of these breweries to beer camp with Charlie Papazian in Maine in about 3 weeks that we got invited to. It's 12 people, 4.5 days with Charlie Papazian, who created craft beer in America. He's the grandfather of craft brewing, for 4.5 days of geeking out on brewing, analysis, sensory, and enjoyment.
Yeah.
But it's never about somebody's better than somebody else.
Can I go?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be awesome. But so leadership style, I think, is you have to have goals.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to unify, and it does take sacrifice. And you share it, and you're generous with it, with accountability. Winning is so different, whatever winning is in your scorebook. For me, I've never worshipped money.
Mm-hmm.
I can outcompete so many people because we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that like No Lie is whatever size of company. We're a top 40 brewery in America, family owned in size. But I can play as big as New Belgium, who's corporate owned by Curran in Europe, or pick another brewery because we take the wealth after we pay all our bills and we invest it all back in. It's not coming off the table.
Mm-hmm.
So we can play a lot bigger than we are because we're willing to sacrifice that money to pay it forward, to keep building this movement that is about community in Grange Hall. And so I think when you throw enough goodness in the universe, hopefully something slingshots back.
Yeah.
I also think if you throw enough bad in the universe, you might get hit by a meteor one day. Right? I mean, so that's the thrill ride of the journey. I'm not racing to retirement, whatever that means, because this is what I was born to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think instilling that, and my wife feels a lot of the same things, and our kids. So it's honoring my grandparents. It's honoring my parents who made sacrifice. They didn't have the mental means, ability, because they weren't exposed to this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a generational thing of going, when I say mental, not like IQ, like the mental surrounding of people who influenced you. to even dream that you could dream that big.
Well, that is a perfect segue into the next question. I love it when that happens.
Okay.
You
might boring you guys. I'm sorry. I'm just, I hope this is okay. All
this is why we're here.
Okay.
So, and your wife is Cindy, right?
Yeah.
So when you and Cindy took over Northern Lights and rebranded to No Lie in 2012, what was your vision? And did you imagine what it would become today? You had a vision, but what you have now, did it exceed that, or are we not there yet?
It's the same and different. The original business plan created in 2011 was to be somewhere between 20 and 23,000 barrels. That's it. Mm-hmm. And the reason was because I've been in a lot larger breweries, and after you hit 40,000 barrels, you're just pushing widgets. You're chasing last year's number. Yeah, you have to expand geography. You're always trying to get bigger.
Gotcha.
So it's easy in business because the big ego thing is how many barrels do you sell? Mm-hmm. How much money do you make? It's really the wrong way to look at it because after you get into business for a while and you're digging through a P&L and a balance sheet, how profitable are you? Not how big you are. It's a boneyard of breweries that outgrew themselves or borrowed too much money and got upside down and they're gone. So my goal is how do we make the best 22,000 barrels in America that has the most influence, most relevant, highest quality that has an impact? That's what's important to me.
Yeah.
I know if we take the next step, we have two breweries. We have the brewery in Spokane that's on this beautiful river that we've helped create. And then we have the Airway Heights Brewery that we purchased in 2018. And it has enough capacity to get us to 25,000 barrels as is. Mm-hmm. I don't really seek to go any larger because I don't seek a larger organization than 90 coworkers. I think, our footprint is Idaho and Washington. But when I started, I was traveling America because I had to go 17 states to get enough liquid out the door for this 30-barrel brew house to make it work. Mm-hmm. So kind of lost track on the question is, this was the Bayou Brewing Company that went bankrupt early, way ahead of its time with a 30-barrel brew house in Spokane in 1995. That means every 30 barrels is 60 kegs or 400 cases of beer. So imagine a pub in Spokane in 1995 brews 30 barrels of beer. Okay, now they have 60 kegs of one flavor. Hey, let's brew tomorrow. There's another 60 kegs of a flavor. Let's brew tomorrow. Okay, now you have another 60. So now you're up to 180 kegs of beer. Where the hell's that going? Pretty soon you have old beer. You can't do diversity.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. You really should have started with a 5 or a 10. And then you go, I'm going to be a great Spokane brewery with a pub. When you go 30, you got to scale and you got to scale fast. Mm-hmm. So I traveled around the country opening up some states to just get the liquid out. And then as we were able to grow and work on our quality and refine the brand and the culture, I'd pull out of those states and sell more locally until we literally pulled out of 17 to 20 states back to our 2, which that's changing with the environment. Being local, I can drive anywhere in 6 hours to touch our beer. So I know how fresh it is. I know the code dates. I can influence those communities. I can be involved. Mm-hmm. So from going back, it's hard to go back in time, almost 13 years, right? The size is where I thought we would be. The beer campus is much larger and a much larger part I thought it would be. We have literally a legitimate 4,400 square foot beer hall that is really close to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich, Germany, because every year we take staff and influential people of the brewery to Europe for an 8-day trip. And we've gone to Oktoberfest twice, and we've been in the Hofbrauhaus twice. And I wanted to replicate that, the closest in North America, and we did. This is the closest Hofbrauhaus in North America outside of Munich Oktoberfest.
Really?
Yeah, this is close.
What's interesting to me is, listening to you talk, you don't just know the business side of it, but you know the craftsmanship of how to make that business work and how your beer is supposed to, it's all new to me. I don't know anything about it. But.
Well, those experiences at Rainier to Deschutes Brewery to Odell to Oscar Blues and being involved in all facets of those breweries.
Yeah.
You learn you don't want a silo. You got to bring an organization together. So you have to have a common purpose. I think the overarching, to go back to your original question, is you got to know what your mission is. You got to know what your purpose is, because that will get you better. And it can't be money. Right. Those who worship money lose a lot. Money is not why God put us on this planet.
Yeah.
That's why I know that to be true. So if we sacrifice our funds, we are debt free. We have zero debt. We pay everything off. Then we pay our people the highest in America that we can and have the best benefits in America. And I know we do for our size, but that shouldn't limit us.
Right.
My obligation is to make the 22,000 best barrels with our staff that's innovative, creative, brings people together. We'll sell at a full price, take the wealth you create, and then I believe I am measured and our company is measured by the wealth that we create and what we do with it. That's how I'd like to be judged, whatever, because that's how my grandmother, if she was alive, would judge me.
Do you have a mission statement?
There's nothing on a wall. I've been in companies where we do, but it's pretty simple and people know it. It's international award-winning beer. One, that's why we exist, is beer. People are the asset. People are the creativity. People are the imagination. People are the heart. And then community. Community is what makes it happen, what makes it worth happening. That's it.
That's solid, man. That's damn respectable.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in those early bootstrapping days?
Here?
Yeah.
I'd say here, we started from Northern Lights to honor the facility. We hyphenated to No Lie, and that's where the name comes from, off Northern Lights. And to be respectful of the Bayou as well. There wasn't a really established deep craft culture of a brewery that was, regional or really outside this area. So therefore, unless you lived in, Bend and Fort Collins and Seattle and Portland and Michigan, there's tons of breweries and talent moves around and it attracts talent. Not that the people they are great here, but there was an established career talent pool of experienced brewers, packaging, lab. So the hard part was that didn't exist at a deep level. And then two is the dream and the possible of a whack-a-mole that you could do it. So you had to break gravity, not with just a new company, but you had to break through gravity to teach and dream that it could happen in Spokane where it probably hadn't happened since Prohibition.
Did you ever feel limited, like imposter syndrome, or I don't know that if I have what it takes to make this happen, or what was your mindset?
I've been running companies. I left the president role of a national company and I had 2 kids in college. I was 46 when I started this. Most people would have just rode it out and retired, and I could have retired if I would have stayed on my trajectory a while ago. But instead, we pushed all those chips right to the middle of the table.
Yeah.
At 46 with 2 kids in college. There's smarter things, but that's the fortitude that I probably should have had more reason. The imposter syndrome or whatever was, can my family hang in there with me?
Mm-hmm.
And can the people we're trying to attract and train to get them to see a dream that the danger is you're projecting what you think in your head into other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't have the same experiences, then it's hard for them to see that movie. And I failed at that a lot because I'd lived through I've worked 80 hours a week, and people say that, they throw that number around. I've worked a lot my whole life, right? Yeah. I don't remember not working hard. I enjoy it. It's not a bad thing. It's what fortifies the soul. And I don't know. There can be too much of that too, and you're
absolutely
out of balance. I'm not trying to say go dig yourself a hole and keep digging. This was more work that was probably harder on my family, of sacrifice of time and being present, because I was flying in friends and mentors and consultants for 7 years to come bring their talent into Spokane to our brewery to teach, if it's brewing, lab analysis, sales, marketing, culture. That's, Charlie Papazian, who created craft beer, has been a good friend, 25, 30 years, but he became a dear friend. I fly him in every year, and our staff still doesn't even understand why. It's culture.
Yeah.
He's here just to simply teach culture by being here.
You've made it very clear that you obviously you didn't do it alone.
No.
It was, you're heavily invested in the people in the organization, the people that influenced you, and, an honor to your grandparents.
Yeah.
What role has your family, especially Cindy, played in building and sustaining No Lie?
Oh, man.
Especially for a guy who's working 80 hours.
Yeah. Cindy's tough as hell, smart as hell. She comes across as this gentle little angel, but she's her family's from Naples, man, and they were sponsored here in 1917 out of Naples, Italy, by the St. Aloysius Church before Gonzaga was a Gonzaga, and these immigrants through Ellis Island caught a train to Spokane. And there's a lot of old time Spokane on the Canadian border, U.S. and Canadian side. They came through Ontario and Ellis in 17, a lot of 1917, 1918. Pushed produce carts, did the Italian thing, barber shops, all that. So she's from that spirit that we share, that it's an opportunity, a privilege, but an obligation to do well. The kids, probably took a lot of the brunt because dad wasn't present, or, maybe I never tried to miss a sporting event or an academic event or things that were really important, but you're not always mentally present because when you're starting something up, you're up at 4 or 5, you work till midnight, you wake up in the middle of the night, you walk the halls, and there's so many times we should have quit. I look back, go, God.
Yeah.
But the ego drives you too. Is like, I can't fail. If I fail, it's not just me failing. It's a peripheral. So I've always, and I've really learned the meaning to account for. Accounting, we're also selfish. It's human DNA. So when we fail, oh, woe is me, this and that. But what about woe is everybody else? What about everybody else who doesn't have a job?
That's not ego, man. That little fear component. It's a little fear component. That's working. It's working in your favor because it's not about ego. You're protecting other people.
Yeah. Well, and you don't ever get that time back. So here's another thing, the key of No Lie right now. So there's 13 years of maybe first 8 were freaking hard.
Yeah.
On a lot of people, not just me, right? Now we got to make it count to make that sacrifice worth it. I'm still incredibly driven to make this brewery something really special in the world. People go, oh, you arrogant SOB. No, it's not. It's not. It's a dream, right?
Yeah.
I think other people can go with us in that dream. I think a community can go with us. I think if Gonzaga can have a top 10 basketball program for 20 straight years, then why can't a brewery in Spokane be a top 10 brewery in America? Why the hell not? Yes, it can happen. But we got to believe in that. And then we raise our standards, our expectations, what does that mean? Okay, then our detail, our attention to detail, our uncompromising, unreasonable standards. And so being unreasonable is not bad. It just can't make you mean and bitter. You just fucking got to let people know there's a purpose to this. And you will financially benefit as well.
It sets the bar high.
Yeah. And we're not going to hit it all the time.
Yeah.
We don't win every contest we go to. I get tasting notes, though. So that the humility is, I want tasting notes from Ireland, Belgium, France, Australia, Japan, South Korea, pick a place, America. And I want to know what all these judges think by these beers. And then we can go to work on them and go, what did we miss? It might not have been in the right style. It's not always that the beer was not right. It's just these styles are very tight.
Yeah.
And you don't always have beers that go to a style. And I refuse to brew to a style. We won't do it because I've been around breweries that go win medals by just tweaking the recipe, doing something special. The beer we send to any contest around the world comes right off that can line, boom, just like you get in the store. Anything that wins a medal from No Lie is the same exact beer you buy, period. And I feel really good about that.
Good.
Yeah.
It sounds like you kind of embody one of my favorite little philosophy quotes is, I always strive for perfection. I seldom succeed, but it's the pursuit that's meaningful.
Yeah. There you go.
I think that's awesome. And it goes way beyond ego. Now I noticed something just in the time that, I came in here and I had to set my shit up and everything. And this goes, and I might be doubling back just a little bit, but I wanted to ask you because you often speak about servant leadership. And I was interested in how you put that into action day to day at No Lie. And I kind of feel like I got a small example of that because this is your whole place. This is your building. Everything in here is yours. But when we were trying to figure out where we were going to set up, you asked one of your coworkers back there, hey, is it okay if we set up in here? What do you have going on? You didn't just go, hey, we're setting up in here, move your shit.
Right.
You asked them.
Right.
And I think I noticed that right away.
Okay.
How do you conduct yourself? Is that how you conduct yourself day to day?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. There's a high standard. You want everybody else to behave that way.
Yeah.
So Do I miss a lot? Yeah. But I can tell you what, we have like this home-based software that people can put notes in and stuff. And I read every one and I try to reply and almost like stating it back what they stated in a paragraph to pull the gems out.
Mm-hmm.
State back, I hear you. Okay. These are things we'll go to work on in your recommendation. And this is when we're going to try to get it done by. So they feel heard. And if I get people feeling heard and it's responsible, it's good, then more people will do that.
Yeah.
Not every idea is a good idea. A good idea, you thought it through. So I'm trying to teach the difference of that as people, there's no such thing as bad idea. There absolutely is. When you just vomit something out, you don't think about it, you just throw it on the table, that's not a good idea necessarily. Because you hadn't given enough respect to actually thinking it through, to think it's valid, to take that to give to somebody else. If you do take that time, you do process it, it's a good idea. Now, is it the right good idea? Who knows? But to you, it was, because you took the actual mental process, the gymnastics of that, to sort it.
Yeah.
And so we are teaching people how to sort, and I want to delegate, but I also learned, you're not a great leader if you don't delegate. That's bullshit too, because you can't delegate to somebody if they're not ready for the responsibility.
This is true.
Right? Yeah. And if they don't have the DNA to take that, because some people do, and they'll figure it out, but a lot of people won't. So then we have to teach problem solving. And so you're doing a lot of these basic things that maybe a lot of people weren't exposed to. I take for granted that people did search and rescue, or their dad sent them to Marine camp, or that I believe in a Grange Hall. But it's a different experience I had. But I also missed out on a lot of other things that give me dark spots or blank spots, or what they call that, blind spots.
Yeah. And it sounds like in doing that, you're playing to people's strong points, recognizing what their DNA, right, what their capabilities are, what their skill sets are, and utilizing those.
Yeah, and I let them know, hey, you're going to get frustrated with me because good is not good enough. Because the standard, it's so easy to do, is your standard is who you hang out with. My dad always told me, you're going to be most like the closest 5 people you spend time with. And I was, whatever, Dad, whatever. He was always, he's right. You're influenced by behavior, your attitude, your thought process, your speaking, negative, positive, whatever. And so I'm like, look, when we come in here, you got to know the energy immediately starts. A customer who let's just say, comes to the beer hall, and you smell it when you walk there. I believe people have really intuitive perceptions. They can pick up right away. Mm-hmm. We give that off and how we engage. And so we expect our staff to get out from behind whatever, just in the pub universe. So everybody who comes in here knows it mattered. Somebody made eye contact. Somebody acknowledged them. That's important in today's society. Absolutely. In our beer, when you pull it off the shelf or you go to a bar, I don't want people going, I don't care what you have. What do you have from No Lie? Well, what don't you? I don't care. I just want that. I want that feeling. I want that summer in July when I was in 5th grade to be represented when you pull that. Because that's unity, that's protection, that's safety, that's warmth, that's celebration. It's all those, whatever the Maslow hierarchy of needs. I want to fill that first row and then maybe the second. And then if you get to self-actualization, that's beyond my ability. I never said I was the smartest. I'm incredibly average.
Well, that's pretty good. No, we don't usually get into that. You've created a brewery that's deeply tied to Spokane's identity.
Yeah.
What responsibility do you feel that you have to the city, and how does that guide your decision making?
Twofold on that. I do have some really strong opinions, because when we started this thing in 2012, if you lived in Seattle, you looked down on Spokane. It was a mustard-stained white tank top wife beater, excuse that term, the thing you'd see in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Spokane had, drugs. It was Spokompton, Spokanistan, Spoklahoma, Spokanada, all that, or Spokane doesn't suck. That upsets me. I don't want to live anywhere. Do you think Austin says Austin doesn't suck and Ben says Ben Stanistan? No. Why are we so self-defacing here? Why do we tear each other down? Why is it such a whack-a-mole? So right away, and one of the reasons we went international was we have to prove and show and validate that something here can be great. And if Gonzaga 2 blocks away can be great as a mid-major school 25 years ago, well, what the hell? They're recruiting athletes from around the country and the world to Spokane. So why can't we recruit and create some of the best talent in the brewing industry in Spokane? But he did it, Few and his predecessor, the Monsons. I mean, that's been going for a while.
Mm-hmm.
People just look at the last 10 years. But that foundation was built on the shoulders of some coaches who didn't have a private plane. They were in a car. I love the story that was told by the sports writer. It was in the paper 2 months ago, how Coach Few and some other coaches, maybe as Monson as well, got to Northern California, borrowed a car, slept on somebody's couch for a month, and recruited with no money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how they created a company. Coach Few and Coach Michelson and Coach Gentry, and I'm missing some coaches, Snacks. They're the most powerful CEOs in the region. If anything else comes out of this talk today, the most powerful CEOs in economic, sports, mental, confidence, prizes, gems of this region is at Gonzaga basketball, men and women too. Why? Because they teach you to believe. They teach you to dream. They are entrepreneurs if they know it or not. They are my role model. What I want to do is earn the right to have such a cool beer and a cool community place and a cool pub that they recruit their athletes here because they want the parents to see there's something else that's really cool in Spokane.
Yeah.
Whenever they come in and recruit, man, I light up. It just makes me feel so proud because they have confidence in us to represent the brand of Gonzaga.
I was wearing my Gonzaga hoodie in Philadelphia a couple of years ago, and somebody just right off the street goes, "Yeah, go Bulldogs! Fuck yeah!" It's like,
isn't that great?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of that in Spokane is we can be great. It's like when I was a kid, if somebody else made you a sandwich, it tasted better for some reason. And I think sometimes when we started the brewery, 99+% of all the craft beer consumed in this town was from another city, another state, and another country, which means we didn't have a strong enough identity and a belief system and a dream. And so that's what I think No Lie hopefully instills in people. I hope with it, you see a resume. Maybe I'm not easy to work for. I don't care because you don't want to work for somebody who's easy to work for because then you're average. And in life, you want to be just slightly above average. I mean, anyway, but I mean, I want it on a resume. If you see somebody worked at No Lie and was successful, they were good.
Yeah.
Why? Because that guy's a driven son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And he ain't going to tolerate less. It's not because I am. It's the brand is. The brand expects to be like GU. Gonzaga loses 3 games last year, the men's team, and all of a sudden, Mark Fuse can't coach.
Mm.
What? Hey, let's be patient here. Let's look at the long term. Let's look holistically, right?
Yeah.
Like, people get so short with short-term results. What I hope is what No Lie represents over decades is this thing that stood the test of time, that continuously got better, included people in the process, but was very driven to a higher standard than the social norm. And one of the things we teach is we don't subscribe to social norms. And I don't say that to be rude. I don't say it to be arrogant.
Well,
the social norms are not what we do here.
Well, you have to break away from that to some degree because social norms are immediate gratification.
Yeah. And so when a customer comes through, they may not be able to express it, but they don't want the norm. They're coming here because they want an experience. They want some really tasty food. They want some really tasty beer. They want pleasant people.
Mm-hmm.
They want to feel safe. They want to feel warm. They want to feel like they're part of the tribe.
Yeah.
And that tribe is something that's bigger than why do people love Gonzaga? If they don't make the NCAA, you think people follow them? They follow people who win.
Yeah.
And the way they win is the most impressive part. Those athletes aren't just like being at some big university and doing things, they recruit a certain athlete and a certain family. And so that speaks to the brand of what they're doing. It's why it's sustained, in my opinion.
Agreed.
It's got authenticity to it.
You, and very recently too, you've donated tens of thousands in meals and funds during crises. What drives that generosity, especially when profit margins are tight?
Right now there's that horrific tragedy, Corley and firefighters. It's why the brand exists. It's just simply why it exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's those stories I told you earlier.
Yeah.
I do measure myself what my grandmother and grandfather would think. If we do something good, I share it with my parents. I want them to feel proud that your sacrifice, like my parents don't have money, but you created something that creates all this different kinds of wealth that just took a generation. And when you're coaching people, it's so hard to say, if you don't wake up on third base, you can't expect to get home fast. If you're born in the dugout and you're just waiting for your at bat, you got to make it count.
Yeah.
Not everybody's born on third base. And frankly, you don't know sometimes how you got there when you wake up there. So the silver spoon or what have you, I think it is a privilege. It's a responsibility. It's an obligation. We teach it to our culture. I try to make sure when we donate money to causes and people then think we're gazillionaires, which we're not, I try to give some raises around the brewery or bonuses to go, hey, this didn't come out of your pocket. It came out of our wealth that we created. So it's separate. It's not hurting you. Because I got to make sure that's distinguished. So typically when we do a big fundraiser and we seize the moment because people need us now, it's not in a month. They need to know we're here for them with respect and dignity. I then try to go back to some key players in the company and give a bonus, give a raise, give something to say, because of you, we have the ability to do this. And because you do this, we do this. The brand has purpose and mission.
What are the biggest donations that you've made so far? Like what have you participated in?
Whatever. We've given away millions of dollars over, and give away. The community makes that happen. Right. By the way, we didn't do that. We all did that. It's just constant. It's I think the Malden fire a few years ago was a big thing we jumped into and raised several $100,000. The first one that we really got deep in, we laughed that we almost borrowed money for 5 years and gave away money we didn't even have because the spirit of the brand needed it. Mm-hmm. If I get down, I don't think I get depressed, but if I get down, my way out is generosity. My way out is giving.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody always better off than you, and there's somebody always worse off.
Absolutely. What's interesting for a lot of people when they get down, their way to try to feel better is to go buy shit.
Yeah. You need outreach. You need to donate your time. You need to get involved with people. So I would say there's hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits we work with to raise all this money. The one that means the most to me, and we did it was probably 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, we really defined who we were with sacrifice, was that there was this young... Excuse me, can I help you? I want to say it was, I don't know, it's a blur. It was, this young girl died in a house apartment fire, and she was in the basement and left alone and tipped over a heater or something, and it caused a fire, and she passed away. And I just remember it was very iffy because it was, I'll say, all the non-PC stuff. It was a white or a black man, or a white or black woman. So it was opposite skin color. Okay. Which does not, I'm just saying that right out because in society today. So forgive me if that's offensive.
No, you can say whatever you want, man.
There were drugs, and maybe a drug house. Mm-hmm. And they maybe hadn't been taking care of their kids. There's a lot of things there. It's all the things as a stereotype. I lead off with that because it paints a stereotype.
I know what you're saying.
Okay. Poverty, neglect, paints all these things that people jumped on. And I apologize if I offended somebody. I'm just trying to paint a picture of a lot of people, what they think, but won't say. Okay. Mm. So it was set up as a narrative of not a lot of feeling sorry, except for the young person who died, but a lot of hate and anger and meanness at the parents. And I'm like, at the end of the day, these people have no money, and a 3-year-old died. We can honor them by giving her a decent funeral. Okay, never mind anything else. It doesn't matter. And so we raised $12,000, of which I've always learned I have to match right up front. I can't ask somebody to put skin in the game unless I do. I didn't have that money back then. I had no money.
You said, and this is one of your quotes, you said, we see that if somebody else doesn't do it, we need to step forward.
Yeah.
This is one of those times.
So we raised the money, and I took shit from the landlord. He said they weren't worth anything, and what are you doing? They're just going to take it and buy drugs.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't give it to them, did you?
We paid it to the service to pay for the service.
And that's what I mean. You donated towards the funeral.
And then I believe we caught their rent up. Mm-hmm. The mother still lost their daughter. Yeah. And the husband still lost their daughter. I'm not sure if it was the stepdad or whatever. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I took crap from people in the community. what he's giving money away to people, all the narrative of just being irresponsible and rewarding. I'm like, at the end of the day, this 3-year-old girl died, and I have a daughter. So we made shirts. We make, as was our thing, we made shirts, but there was no lie on it because this isn't about opportunist or anything. This is about carrying love and going against the grain. And if that's called risk, I'll take it. So what I know did happen was I paid their rent off, or we did as a community. Okay. Will they use that for good? I don't know. Probably doesn't matter, but they got a shot. I put a couple thousand in their pocket, and the young daughter had a respectful funeral and was buried. Okay. Fine. I do know a month later, the mom came in and she was obviously distraught. Wasn't the healthiest. You can paint the narrative. And she just broke down in the front of the pub and hugged me. I tear up about it today, and I just thought, that's why we do this.
Well, and this is part of the society that we live in too. Yeah. Like, you hear about these events that happen. Yeah. Like you just said, the circumstances are, well, let's make all of our judgments based on the circumstances around. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't feel bad for them because that's their own fault. Yeah. But, and I encountered this time and time again over my career, that when, the people that, a lot of times people that you wouldn't give a second look, you're like, oh, it's just one more guy. I gotta wake him up and haul him off to the hospital. Yeah. But you actually sit down and talk to the person.
I heard your podcast about this story.
Oh, did you? Yeah. See, and shit like that changed my life. That changed how I think about people. And that's part of why I want to do this. Yeah. So yeah, it's stories like that. I'm going to change gears real quick. You've given me a lot of insight into the good examples that you had set for you, your strong ties to family and your work, or your company and your worker and your community. But a lot of times a leader is truly defined by the things that go badly. Sure. What are one of those times that everything kind of went to shit, and what did you do about it?
God, I mean, I fail more than the average bear, right? So...
And I do have an instance for you that I wanted to ask you about. So if you can take this, run with it, or you can go anywhere you want with it.
I got a million of them. So
during
unfortunately,
and tell me if I've got this wrong, because I'm pretty sure I didn't get the full story. Yeah. But during COVID, didn't you make some hand sanitizers or something?
That was Dry Fly.
Well, that was
Dry Fly was here, and they did the hand sanitizer.
Oh, okay. So you did. There was a connection.
Yeah, people confused because it makes sense. No Lie and Dry Fly, and there's a restaurant here called Bangkok Thai. So yeah, it's a lot of
Okay, well we'll cut that one out.
Yeah. I mean, God, it started as a young kid. I mean, my dad sent me to that Marine boot camp in Pendleton, which was basically kind of a scared straight program. Yeah. It was either the officers' kids or gangsters out of L.A., and I was there. I wasn't there because I was a good Samaritan. I was there because I was pushing the bounds of everything, right? And it wasn't how my family rolled. And so what was the failure there was, learning, I guess, just respect for others. And maybe that was the selfless of understanding your impact on other people. Manifesting forward to No Lie. I mean, it was dark. The first several years, we should have quit. We had no money. I couldn't pay my bills. I mean, I just remember looking back and, and I know people this is no different for somebody at home who doesn't have money. Your bills are 4 inches high and your checks are a ½ inch high, your receivables. And I remember just one day we're going to spend less time on trying to move around the payables, the things I owe money for, and calling people and begging for more time. And more time, that time will then be used productively. So I think back in the day when the stress overwhelms you, there's literally a burning acid in your stomach and you can't sleep more than 2 hours at a time.
I bet.
Right? It's impossible. So if I went to bed at 11, I was up at 1. And my brother told me to lean into it. I said, if you're going to get up, just get up. Don't lay there. And so I just get up and think, how could I have handled it better? Probably calmer, more organized, believe that I was going to get there. Because you can have a dream. I don't think with my father, because they weren't from wealth or they weren't really from success, was you can teach somebody to dream and you can teach somebody to believe and you can teach somebody to goal set. But can you teach them to believe that's going to happen? It's different.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to give away money if you have money. It's not easy to give away money if you don't have money. It's easy to give away food if you're full and your cupboard's full. It's a whole different individual who does that when they don't have. And I think that is the learning thing for me is if I'm really going to espouse this goal system and believing, and then I have to, which means we're going to get there. Well, don't worry about it right now. We're going to get there. And then I do believe the universe does move if you start behaving that way. So my biggest faults are in that moment where maybe I don't truly believe that goal is achievable, but I don't quit digging until we get there. Right. Is that clear enough? I can give you getting in an argument with a guy, a vendor on the phone 10 years ago where I can't pay him and, he's cursing me out. And I always will say, I am account for it. I own it. Okay. You will get paid. And when we bought the Northern Lights brewery, okay, and I had a partner for 3 years, the original Northern Lights, great guy, and family. And when we decided to split, we bought them out, I didn't realize there were a lot of debts that had never been paid from the Northern Lights coming in after Bayou. And on the final day of closing, we couldn't close because the lady who actually owned all the brewing equipment here had not been paid for 10, 15 years.
Wow.
Okay. So a lot more savvy people maybe would go, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar because this brewing equipment has been fully depreciated for a decade. It went in 1994. It's now 2015. Yeah, but I've never been paid and I'm 87 years old and, all the money to do this, I'm borrowing. So I had to call the banker and go, I need another few $100,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we paid her dollar for dollar. And then some other people came out of the woodwork that wasn't even on paper that said, I was part of this and I haven't been paid. Well, what is it?
Wow.
And people are like, don't pay that shit. You don't know. We paid it. So when No Lie is and was and will be is whole. And everybody who has said has always been paid. I own that. That's pressure. That's obligation. But everybody got dollar for dollar.
Yeah, that's ownership.
Yeah. And so in some ways I worked for free as an indentured servant, if you will, for the next 4 years to pay that off. That's hard sometimes. So you have to believe or it ain't worth it.
For real.
For real. Yeah.
So what kind of legacy you hope to leave, not just as a brewery founder, but as a community member, husband, and a mentor?
I'm still married. God bless her, Cindy. We had our 35-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I got 3 kids. They're 31, 29, 27. I don't want them to be like me necessarily because I've raised in a different time by different people, and it's not always balanced and healthy, right? If you have too much drive, and that chip on the shoulder is fear of failure, fear of being poor. Mm-hmm. For me, it's fear of being poor. So that's why I don't worship money because I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot. And so I have to make sure those around me that for the sacrifice we make, is it worth the exchange? That's important. And for me, it's since I have a different needs list, I have to make sure my wife and kids and everybody is this enough for the sacrifice given of all the time? When you can see people, you can always find a wealthier person or somebody now who's my age and they're buying a house on Hayden Lake and retiring and checking out. Like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you still doing that? Because I like it, because I still have a purpose. So the legacy left behind is one, I got to make sure that I honor my grandparents and my parents for the sacrifices they made to give me even the opportunity to even get out of the dugout, to take a hit, to get to third base.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you taking your teammates with you? Or are you making the community bigger? So the legacy would be Spokane is a better place because No Lie existed. Spokane has a international craft brewing scene because No Lie existed. We take care of those around us that are vulnerable better because No Lie existed. And we're teaching accountability because giving out, if you want to label people right or left, just giving shit away does not solve a problem. And I learned back from my grandfather who had to, dig a hole and bury it at the CCC, but he worked. He wasn't sitting home watching TV because he was able. He was physically able. And that meant something. How would I have been different if Grandpa was healthy but got a check in the mail? Would he have driven? Would that have been? I don't think it had been the same.
Right.
So how do you balance that? Being raised as a young kid in Hoodsport, going to Skokomish school, by the Indian reservation, Native reservation, indigenous school, however you want to, talk to a lot of dear friends, and there's cultural differences, and you see things even as a young kid you kind of don't understand, but you see the differences. And how are we supportive as a brewery? Teach how to give as a brewery, but have accounting with it. It's a fine line and not perfect. And who's to say I'm the guy that gets to decide that? So that's where arrogance would come in, like we have the answer, but we don't. So it goes back to that young girl that we gave. We weren't expecting anything in return. She got a burial. The parents got their place, their rent up to speed. Whatever happened since then, the big emotional hug, I'm not sure. I don't know if it matters. But I know they got a break.
Mm-hmm.
They were clean to go. And what they chose to do with that was up to them. That's free will.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think free will is a big part of the universe too.
And I'm glad you said that, because I have one more question for you that wasn't on my sheet. And the reason I'm asking is because of all, a lot of the stuff that we've already covered.
Yeah.
And you are clearly a believer in investment of energy in the universe,
mm-hmm.
and the values that you embody in how you take care of people and how you give. What is your spiritual base? What do you believe in?
Yeah, I guess I was born like a white trash Catholic kid. Just, and I mean that not as racism or discrimination, just poor kid in the country that God was all feared. My grandmother did not go to church, but she had a deep faith, and I know the cross on the wall where you pull off the back, and there's that piece of paper where you lead. I saw her do that. Read the last rites from that.
What? Sorry.
So you have, Jesus Christ. It's you have on the wall, the old school,
right,
wood cross with Christ, which is some kind of metal alloy. But if you pop off the back, there is a piece of paper there, and it was for reading the last rites.
I didn't
It's
know
my
that.
grandma's trailer.
Huh.
She didn't go to church, so that was not a practice thing. But I knew the fear of God, and I knew that God existed because that gives us purpose. And so yeah, I'm a believer. What does that mean? I refer to it as a universe because I love history. I love ancient history, studying it, and way pre-Greek. Just how the world that we can trace back in written, of civilized man, if you will. And there's always been a God that people have worshipped.
Mm-hmm.
So that's you got the strong man. You got the religion, and you get the economic base, and you got yourself an empire. But I do believe, beat the red and the black print in the Bible, there's a lot of truth in there. And at the end of the day, if your biggest risk is to believe in that and practice it and help people with authenticity, the odds are in your favor. And so I believe when I die, I hope I'll go there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have a deep faith. That was really created by my grandma's behavior and how she took care of people. So I have a hard time with millionaires or, preachers flying around in jets. And yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I think Christ was poor, He
was a carpenter, man. Or no,
right?
Jesus.
Right? Mary Magdalene and the whole, they're washing feet and they didn't have anything. So, maybe the God I believe in is that you serve. And accumulation of wealth is not a measurement tool. It doesn't make you a better human. I think there's a lot of humility and learning and growth in serving. And I don't mean that to sound corny, but
you live it though. So
I've learned so much from the people that we serve that you can't get cocky or arrogant. And the stuff you see, and my wife is a CASA, so she's a child advocate, court-appointed specialist in the courts. So she deals with the kids who are horrible things at young ages.
Yeah.
She's their advocates to get them to a safe place so they can hopefully have a shot at life. And these stories are horrific. So, what God allows that, right? So there's a lot of what God allows war, and free will is out there. And so if we can exercise our free will to influence something in a better way, regardless if you're an atheist or, I don't know, you're Jewish, you're Buddhist, whatever your faith in the universe is, I think you have to have something though. It has to be bigger than you.
I think that's very well put.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it's an empty existence.
I don't have any more questions for you.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or do you have any questions for me?
Not really. I think I appreciate the time, and it's always kind of like this mental therapy almost for me to think back. It makes me more appreciative. It makes me understand myself when I talk through some of these things.
Yeah.
And we're all you're all in progress. I've learned that grace is a big word I'm still trying to understand, and forgiveness. And because when you're strong, you're raised to be strong, to survive.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's not a choice. The playground's hard. There weren't a lot of hall monitors where I grew up. You learn to survive, and you learn to unify people. You get a tribe, and then you learn what to do with that. And I think we all do that. Like you're doing this podcast, it's your way of serving. It's your way of growing. I'm sure it's therapeutic, and it's a gift that you get to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
and I have to take stock because this podcast it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to make it about me, even though it's my show.
Yeah.
But it gives me the opportunity to really dig deep into somebody else and listen to what they have to say and listen to their insight and understand them. And because I found that those opportunities were some of the most important things that I experienced through my entire career. So I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and just in closing, I believe that, say, about 90 people that work at our two breweries and the pub, call them coworkers, employees, friends, teammates, whatever you want to call them, I believe they're some of the greatest people in Spokane. And I believe, and they're still trying to believe, the dream that I have that we're trying to get everybody to share and to shape it as well, is this brewery could be one of the best in the world. That's crazy, but that's what we're going for.
Well, I think you've got the mindset for it. I think you've got the value system for it. And I think you've got the motivation for it. So, wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Well, that'll about do it for this episode of The People We Meet. I'd like to take a few seconds for some shout-outs. First, to my main man, J-Mac at Studio 42 Recordings for his audio prowess. Second, to my family for putting up with my recording shit scattered all over the dining room table and for stopping to talk to random strangers wherever we go. And last, to my listeners. This isn't a big show, so it means a lot to me when somebody rolls up to me and says, "Hey man, when are you going to have out some more shows?" So if you know someone who has a story that just has to be told, drop me a line at thepeoplewemeetpodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next time.